Good afternoon and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Kelly Foster. Good afternoon.
Hello, Pete. Thank you so much for having me.
No, well, listen, thank you. And thank you for having me on your podcast a while ago. So, listen, you're an old hand at this, so it should be easy, right?
No, not at all. It's different, isn't it, when you're in the firing seat?
Yeah, that's it.
So
Are you a
this
bit of a
is
control freak or are we okay with this? How's this feeling?
no. I'm quite I don't kind of control anything. So yeah, it's fine. Absolutely fine. I'm really excited actually.
Perfect.
Because when you do interviews all the time, it's always about your structure and, how you want to do things, not in a controlling way, but that kind of, framework that you work from. So here being sat and actually having nothing planned, no notes, nothing is very different. So yeah, this is going to be good. I can feel it. There's
Good.
Definitely fire in my belly today.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
tell us and tell the listeners, who are you and what do you do?
Okay, so my name's Kelly Forrester, and I am now, and I've titled this fairly recently in the last month, a resilience and growth leader. Now, what that means to me is I'm the girl that, against quite a lot of things that have happened in my past, has every time she's kind of been broken a little bit, she's dug in deep and actually taken really valuable lessons away. But most importantly, being able to dig into that inner strength and use it as a force for good now to help others. And that's what I'm about is, not to fear things, not to feel a failure even, not to feel that adversity keeps you down, because it doesn't. Some of those things are just the stepping stones then to a brighter future. And that's what I really do want to make sure that everybody understands.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. You referred to yourself in the third person there twice. That was quite interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah. I was curious. I don't know if you were where you did that. So you're saying
No, not at all.
she needs, she's resilience and she's this. So it's like, well, is that the third person? I'm not sure. But yeah, that was an interesting little,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll learn more about that. That's great. So tell me, what does fire in the belly mean to you?
I think fire in the belly to me is what actually drives me. When I wake up in the morning, I do a lot of visualization work, and it's what I have in my thoughts to myself when I'm on my own, and what drives me forward and gives me purpose and intent in my life. And it's not the material things, it's what really makes Kelly happy. So that for me is what fire in the belly is about. It's what drives a person. And so today I'm going to hopefully share with you what drives me.
Perfect, thank you. Is this something do you think has evolved and to where you are today, or is it something has this been a set goal for you for a while?
Not at all. I would say this last 10 months, this has been my absolute purpose and what's driven me for this last 10 months. So relatively new, but I also recognise that I wouldn't be doing what I do without all the historical stuff as well.
Sure.
So although sometimes things in your life happen and they hurt or they're painful, you have to work through that and you have to be able to reframe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so using some of the NLP, using some of the visual therapies that I've worked on, and some healing as well and spiritual work, it's allowed me to look at things and think, actually, what have I learned? What can I help others with? How can I be honest to myself and others? What drives me? What makes me so sedulous? And, it's about being honest, having those uncomfortable talks with yourself, isn't it? Sometimes actually looking in that mirror. And I've done a lot of that work to be able to then think, actually, I'm ready now. I'm really ready. But I wouldn't have wanted to have gone out there and tried to heal other people before healing myself.
You've just used a word that I've never heard before, sedulous.
Oh, so that's some of my core values of who I am. Sedulous is very hardworking.
Okay.
So a little bit like tenacious.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. I love it. Love it.
New word for you, Pete.
Yeah, a new word. This is great. I'm learning all the way here. This is brilliant.
Yeah.
Love it.
It actually means works hard and never gives up.
There you go. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So it's great. I mean, those, to see that sort of drive in you, and it's obviously, it's the journey you've been on. So take us right back. Where are you from originally? And, you talk to us about your upbringing.
Well, I'm from a lovely place in Cornwall. I've got my Cornish mug here with me, Pete. For
Perfect.
anybody that's listening, I just showed it on the video. And I'm very proud of that. I loved growing up in, like coasts, but not too far from the most beautiful walks. I had a really lovely, childhood in some ways, and I'm grateful for those, landscapes. In the winter, it would be very cold, and all the tourists, or as we would call them, emmets, would disperse. And then in the summer, it would be, my God, are we ready? Yeah, let's go for it. And it would be really busy, but you'd have the beautiful beaches, the rugged coastlines, and yeah, it's just beautiful. So I grew up in Cornwall. Yeah.
You were saying that, sorry, emmets, where do emmets come from? That's
Okay, so emmets is just a word that I'm not sure whether it's more Cornish than it is Devonshire, but as I live in Devon now, I still use that word, but it's for people that come down to where we are here in the southwest with their caravans and their motorhomes. Sorry, listeners. And they kind of just all come, use the surfing and the coastline and the camping, and then they all go back home again. So emmets is just a word for holiday makers.
Oh, yeah. Brilliant. So yes, I mean, you were saying that was, you had the beautiful summers and the harsher winters really as you're growing up.
Yeah.
It's and were you always out and about, or were you an inside child? What were you like as a child?
Definitely not. I was not. So I grew up, my brother is 6 years, I believe, younger than I am. And I have to think about that a bit because I left home when I was 14, but my two brothers were a lot younger than I was. So I was almost kind of really like an only child. And I was not a typical girl. I was very tomboy, didn't have any Barbies, none of that, stuff. I was outside, I had horses. If I wasn't horse riding, I was bike riding. If I wasn't doing that, I was doing a paper round at like 11 or 12 years old. I've always been an outdoor girl. Love it.
Where does that come
Absolutely
from?
Love it.
Is that just part of you, or is it from your parents, or?
No, it's definitely within me. So the only time that I ever really switch off is when I'm with nature, when I'm camping, when I'm walking up Munros in Scotland, bagging Munros, when I'm riding and galloping across a beach, and it's just the wind in my hair, and just the stars at night. That's when I'm happy. That's when I feel like I'm back home. Like if I believed in past life regression, it would be about being a warrior, a Viking or something like that, where I'd be in the sea and I'd be, just riding across the landscape. So I just love it. Absolutely love nature.
Well, since you brought it up, have you been here before?
I don't know. I've never really looked at sort of things like that. It's really weird because I don't know if I am spiritual or not. I'm very, what's the word? Intuitive. I'm very, I sometimes I'll reply to somebody and I'll feel like I've had a conversation, and I have seen a couple of, dare I say, sort of spirits in my past as well. There's been 2 or 3 occasions where I've seen something. But there's actually been 2 of those occasions, and then I was practicing something and something happened which was quite odd, just basically with candles and things, and some energy kind of came into one of my chakras, but because it scared me, I then came completely away. I was like, oh my God, no. I mean, I don't even like spiders, so I was like, oh, I'm too scared. So my warrior kind of, woman like stood on the hilltops, is also quite a scaredy pants too.
Defeated so by a spider.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably not win if I had like a spider on my sword, or I'd be gone. But anyway, I don't know if I've been there before, but I definitely reconnect with myself. I discover a lot about myself. And I recognize kind of how far I've come. but also I instantly switch off and ground when my shoes are off and I'm touching the beautiful mud or sand or whatever it is, wherever I'm stood. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh wow, that's quite amazing. And what I mean, do you have any really early memories in life, or what's your earliest memories there?
Oh, my earliest memory is, so my granddad was somebody who I absolutely respected and admired. And when my parents lived in Newquay in Cornwall, he had a big house on Pentyre overlooking the Fistral Bay, which is one of the best parts, by the way, for surfing. And he had lots of businesses, lots of properties. And I always remember, because my auntie lived with him at the time as well. I was very close to both my granddad and my auntie Eileen. And just being in that house, like, it would have been about 10 years ago, and I'm 42. So at 30-ish, I went back to the same house and I knocked on the door, and there's a little old lady, and I said, my granddad used to live here. Would you mind if I came and had a look? And she let me in, and it's amazing when you go back, like from a child, one of your earliest memories, and you go back as an adult. I found that quite, it kind of was similar to how I remembered it, but bigger, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, that's my real happy memories, is being with my granddad, who was just the candle kind of in my eyes. He was just amazing, such a lovely person. Unfortunately, he did pass over 20 years ago now from cancer, and it was really sad saying goodbye to him, because he was one of those heroes in my life. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it's sad times. It's but it's great to have the memories too. Would you?
It is, and yeah.
Had you other grandparents on the scene, or?
No, so my history is, I grew up with, my mum was 19 when she had me, and so very, very young. Both her and my real dad parted ways literally when I was about 1.5 or 2. They had a big fallout, and my real dad had actually hit my granddad, who I used to refer to as my gramps, in the eye. And as a result of that, my granddad actually had cancer when I was very young, probably 4 or 5. And he had to have a glass eye. So he had all of his socket removed. And a lot of my parents, well, my mum used to say, oh, it's because your dad hit him in the face. I don't know. I still to this day, I'm not sure whether that was the reason, but I do remember being very young and sitting on my granddad's knee, and all the other grandchildren would be scared, but not me. I would sit there and I'd help him clean it, and I'd be like, come on, Gramps, you'll be fine. And I've always looked after people. And yeah, so I grew up, my mum worked a lot. My mum used to go out a lot, and she would leave me with my granddad, my nan, and my auntie. So they were kind of the people that really brought me up. Unfortunately, my nan died when I was 2. So that was very sad. And my granddad and our connection got closer as a result of that, which was lovely. And with my auntie. So I actually used to call my auntie my mum sometimes, because my mum wasn't really around. And my auntie Eileen, or Auntie I as I'd refer to her, I've got so many lovely memories of her coming home from darts, or she'd wake me up and she'd say, Kelly, wake up, let's go and have a little midnight treat. So back in the day, we'd have these lucky dip bags with the fish that were fortune tellers, and she would let me wake up at midnight, and it was just lovely. It was really lovely. But unfortunately, my mum and my stepdad at the time, we moved away for a little bit. We went to North Devon. We actually went to a place called Ilfracombe, still near the coast, still near everything, still had the horses, still had the bike. My stepdad actually was a policeman, so we had to move away with the job. And then we went back down. We were living not far really from Truro. I don't know if you know Truro down in Cornwall. So kind of that's the last part of my childhood before I left home at 14. So
Wow.
it's quite a steppy kind of thing, because essentially up until the age of about 6 or 7, I was in Newquay. Then I moved to Ilfracombe till I was 10, 11, and then back down to Cornwall again after that.
What
So
caused you to
yeah.
move back?
Well, my dad actually got repositioned, so it was literally just before I started, um, secondary school that we moved. And I can remember actually, I was about a week starting school. Not that it really made a difference, but I had to start with a black eye because I'd been horse riding and a gate had hit me in the face. I was like, hello, I'm the new person and I've got a massive black eye and I'm arriving late. But nothing really changes there because I think I'll be late for my own funeral. I'm always late. I don't try to be, but it just happens. I don't think time has a frequency with me. I'm a bit like Bill Gates. I have the ability to bend time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's it I think having moved so much in my childhood never really fazed me. Even though there was a lot of moving around, it didn't really bother me too much.
You come across as, having very strong bonds with people, and
Definitely strong with my granddad and my auntie Eileen. Very, very strong. And when my nan was there, even though she died when I was young, there's a picture of us all. There were about 12 or 13 cousins and nephews, and I'm the one that's right next to her. Yeah, very much. Unfortunately, I didn't have that relationship with my own mum, which is sad, or my real dad. But yeah, that was a hard time.
Sure. So tell me, I mean, as a 7, 8-year-old, what would we have seen in Kelly then?
Totally different, Pete, to now, but I'm guessing that that's normally the way with all of your guests. I was always very independent. I was always very kind of boyish and sort of, I'd always be the one that would get the parts in, like the main part on plays and things like this. As a 7, 8-year-old, we used to do carnivals and things like that. And I'd love to, to kind of take part in those sorts of things. I was Nancy in Oliver Twist, and things like that. I've always enjoyed kind of being out there and doing my thing. Yeah.
A bit of
Very free.
an actor and really would you say, would it go as far as saying attention seeking, or was it just acting? You just enjoyed the showmanship side?
No, I enjoyed the energy that you get when you stand and so not attention seeking in a kind of look at me way, but more about and this is like one of my biggest goals is to do this. So maybe it's always been destined for me, but I've always loved capturing the audience, but in a way that grips them and gets them involved. So there's a real energy with that. And I love that. So when people leave from going to see somebody, they come away and they're like, oh my God, that was amazing. Or that really showed me or taught me. Or I just think, that makes a difference to so many people that it's a really powerful thing to do. And so whether it was playing Nancy and Oliver Twist, or it wouldn't bother me what part I had to play, whether it was the cleaner, and it's about just making that difference. That's what that is about for me.
How do you see that in your head, that sort of, as you say, that sort of, appealing to a crowd or, serving to others? What does that look like for you?
It is about energy. So I feel that we're all connected in one way or another through a higher energy. When in life we are maybe not doing what we're gifted to do, or we just settle and stay inside our comfort zones, and we're not really fulfilling our true potential. For me, it's a sad energy, it's a frustrated energy, and I love to see people that are highly energetic, that are doing really well. And when I say doing really well, it doesn't matter what it is for them, even if it's being the best mum they can be, or being the best father, or none of it. It's not about a title. It's about living life every day but living it and actually going to sleep at night and thinking, I'm really happy and content. Contentment is so important. So for me, it's about helping people to find what they really value, because life is a tapestry. We never know how long we have. And I learned that from a very young age. So don't waste a second. Do what, you were gifted to do. And I believe everybody has a gift in life. So sometimes we just have to find it.
At that young age, you appear to have come away with a lot of, experiences of loss or moving away, or people moving in and out of your life, and a lot going on. Is that a fair statement?
It is. I haven't, said, because I didn't want to kind of jump in and ruin the energy. And when I say ruin, I don't mean, it. So for me now, I'm used to kind of talking about these things, but without maybe necessarily the emotion attached. But I also don't want to seem like I'm like cold, because I've had to learn how to share this, but without attaching maybe some of those emotions. And also being able to talk about it, but actually from a place of good, rather than how I felt maybe 10 years ago or 5 years ago, which was still hurting inside. And so when you work through these processes, it's easier to talk about it, but it doesn't mean that it didn't hurt, because it did hurt. It was a hard time. But when I grew up, my stepdad, his side of the family, there was a person that had actually abused me as a young girl. So I was abused. I hid it, didn't say anything. I felt that, I was responsible. I felt dirty. And it wasn't until I was 14 that my mum read my diary, and she found a page which referred to what had happened. And I was then ashamed to the family. And at 14, I was asked to leave. And I believe my mum and I have had conversations since. And I do talk about this in some of my workings, which is why I'm comfortable with sharing it. Because as a young girl, you're not, or young boy for that matter, it's not your fault if something like that happens to you. And you shouldn't feel shame or feel that, it's dirty, because it's a part of life which somebody has taken from you, but you can choose to work with that. And the way that I work with that is I forgave, and I realised that actually it gave me a strength. It gave me a strength to be able to resonate with people that have been through things like that in their life. And hopefully, by talking about these things, we can help others, and also we can help for it not to happen in hidden or closed doors. So it was hard at 14, because I did actually go to live with my auntie for a bit, who I absolutely adored. But I was very torn between my auntie and my school. I was going on a bus every day, and all my friends. And I was a very independent young girl. So I decided, and with my auntie's permission, I went into what's called assisted care. So I had at 14 and a half a bed sit. I was doing my own shopping, I was doing my own laundry, and I was still going just at the very end of my exams. And then I started college. And I've got my own sons now. One is 21, but my youngest son is 15. I think, my God, at your age, I was living on my own, like on my own. And so I did get into trouble. I did do some things that I'm not proud of, in terms of, I tested a few drugs. I used to be a professional dancer, so I was in the dance industry. You wouldn't even think that now, but that's, I enjoyed doing that. I love dancing. At 16, I decided that I wanted to try and find my dad, my real dad, who I hadn't seen for years. And unfortunately, I was disappointed again. It wasn't, you create an illusion of what you think your dad should be, and he bitterly disappointed me. So I made the decision that, and the lesson I take from that is, it doesn't take anything to become a dad. but it takes everything to be a proper father. And so I've always, with my children, I've always trusted in them, talked openly about things, you know, learning from what my mum and I've always believed in them. And it doesn't matter what they do, they can always talk to me about anything. And we have that very open policy in our home where, you know, I wouldn't want that to happen to my own children. And I say to my 15-year-old Casey, I'm like, God, you're just like me. He really is. He's like completely like me. And I say, look, it doesn't matter what you do. You just got to be honest with yourself and honest with mum. Okay. And he's like, okay, mum. But yeah, it's, you know, I've said to him, you've always got a home here with mum, because I never want to see any of my children at 14, you know, and in that situation. So I guess what that taught me as well, being 14 on my own, was I was very solution focused. So I would hit challenges, things would happen, I didn't have any money, or things would just come at me. And at that young an age, you know, my priorities were completely different to other kids of that age. So I had to grow up really quickly, and I had to be very streetwise. I had to be very, decisions had to be made quickly on my own. You know, it was my world. And so that has allowed me to make decisions, take action, and to look at things and think, what's the solution here? How can I look at this? So rather than blocking things like some people do when they hit adversity, I talk about them, I share my truths, and I don't try to hide from them or mask them. I'm very much about being open about them. And so, yeah, at 16, I came up to Exeter, which is here in Devon, and I was on my own, had nobody, nothing, just come away from my real dad, walked into a shop, found an advert for a flat, had to walk 11 and a half miles every day to, walked into a shop, Be Wise at the Times, got a job, walked every day until I had my first wages. The landlady said, yeah, I trust you, you can have this flat. And literally that's how I started. And I've been living in Exeter now for 24 years, 26 years, something like that. And I love it here, it's great. But it has meant that my mum, my stepdad, we don't have a particularly strong relationship. And obviously, you know, my real dad, I don't have any connection with whatsoever. So, yeah.
Going back, I mean, do you have any sense now as to why that all happened?
Yeah, when you're young and something as terrible as abuse happens, it isn't, as a young girl, that is not your fault.
Mm.
And the only way that that's their sense of what they've done is that it shouldn't be me carrying a guilt or a shame.
Mm.
So if anybody's ever experienced something happening to them, and yes, it can be abuse, but it could be an attack or, you know, rape or anything like that. It's not that person. They are not the victim. But I think for so long, people can carry that victim perspective, and it's not necessarily the right way, because we have to kind of look, well, I had to look at it and go, it's okay, I forgive him.
Mm.
Because I'm not carrying any shame, because I'm not going to be made to feel like that. And there wasn't any reason for that happening to me. It's not like, you know, a pre-cursed karma, or, you know, it just happened. But it was then my choice as to how I moved on from that. And I've been in a relationship where I've been violently hurt. So I've also gone through domestic violence. And so both of those are quite brutal. And I was very quiet, funny enough, from probably 16 to 21. I was very, very quiet. I kind of went in on myself at that stage. that was mostly because of the relationship that I was in as well. And being controlled is, you know, living with a narcissist, living with somebody that has that real controlling demeanor, but also backs it up with their hands and violence. That was also quite something. And this is why I like to talk about that resilience, because that's what helped to guide me. That's what allowed me to survive. That's what allowed me to eventually find that strength to recover from that. But I don't think I really recovered from any of those things until 10 years ago. So I would have been like 30. It took a long time. It doesn't just happen, unfortunately. It takes time to go through. But also, I think there's an element of when you have your own children, you see your own kids grow, you see their emotions, their feelings, and how vulnerable they can be at times. And then you start to realize actually how, you know, actually give yourself a break, you know. And this is me kind of looking at me. I was like, look how young they are, and look at the world through their eyes, and you then see things differently. And it allowed me to kind of think, actually, I've been carrying all that internal baggage and emotion, but I should just allow myself to just, you know, face all of it and actually deal with that internal pain and hurt. And that was a big release for me. But it wasn't until I was at least 30 till I was able to do that. And then later on, I've had more stuff because I lost my business 2 years ago. And that was another big, you know, huge adversity through those circumstances. So it's been an up and down life for me. It's not been easy at all. But I'm still here fighting, hence, you know, that growth and resilience, because I believe that we all can. And that's the thing, you know, we can all choose to grow through things and to use that resilience in us to be able to become that version of our own extraordinaries. But it takes time. And that's why I always say about thinking about the person. Sometimes when we work with people, because some people read from a book, don't they? They read from like textbook and they go, oh, well, this is what you should do. But it doesn't always work like that. Whereas when I work with people, a lot of the time it comes from my heart. It comes from that intuition. It comes from my soul. And so it's different then. It gives you a different perspective. And by God, I think I've got enough life experiences to certainly help others. And so that's why I chose what I do, was to be able to serve others and not just myself, but actually be able to give them the power, if you like, to be able to help direct their own lives, but in a different trajectory, which I think is really important.
I mean, at 14 to you know, to have all those experiences happen to you and to be at that stage, and it sounds like you've very much decided to take control, which is quite mature in itself. You know, for you to do that, to take a decision, almost it comes across that almost enough was enough, and actually you would lead yourself again. Is that, have I picked that up correctly?
Yeah, and that was the same as well after, you know, when I had left. I say left, it was more like fled. When I'd fled my relationship that ended with domestic violence, it was the exact same. It was like, I need to do this, otherwise, you know. So I'm not playing a victim here. It's time for me to act, for me to take action, and for me to make that decision. So yeah, taking control is one thing, but also understanding through all of that, you know, I appreciate that we all have to take responsibility for anything that happens through life. That's one of the biggest things, is to accept, but also to know that it was my choice how I responded, so to find those solutions. And that for me was what I learned, I suppose, from without any guidance, but it just kind of came from here, from when I was so young.
Do you ever feel like you were being guided?
I never really thought about it.
I'm just curious because Again, it's me. I like body language and things like that. You touch your bottom of your throat there and the top of your chest. A fair amount, and I don't know, because some people would feel connected or feel guided by past relatives or other people like that. I don't know. I was just curious.
I've never had that sort of experience before. Like, I've never really thought, oh, I have to say, I say I haven't had any experiences. When I've been at rock bottom, the first thing I'll do is kind of look up and then I will ask. It's funny, actually, you should say, because I will ask my granddad or my auntie. I'll go, just give me a sign. Like, what can I do? Just help me here, or just something. But I never really kind of see them.
Yeah.
They don't talk to me or anything like that, but maybe there is a guidance there. I've always wondered what they would think now, because my granddad always used to say, oh, Kelly, she's the apple of my eye. And, my auntie would always be really fond of me as well. And so I was only 21 when both of them went. They actually went in the same 10 days of each other as well. So my granddad went first and then my auntie went. And I actually held my auntie's hand while she died. And that was... and I was 21 years old at that point. So I've experienced that loss. And I know that you have had that too. And I think that's why life is so precious. And that's why, even though I've been through a lot, and I've been through a lot as well this last, couple of years, but I'm still grateful for every day. Every single day. When I wake up in the morning, I am grateful for life. Before anything else, before wealth, before, obviously I'm very grateful for my family. Like, when I say my family, I mean Martin and my children and his children. And those are the things that matter. But I believe gratitude is we haven't talked anything about my business loss, but when I had to liquidate my business, it was really messy. I felt so much shame and so much guilt. And this wasn't somebody had done this to me. This is Kelly as an adult who had to make really tough decisions, had been let down by somebody and had failed to do due diligence and left people that trusted me with, out maybe 1 month or 2 months rent. And it was horrific. And I felt so awful for that. And I'd been having that on my shoulders for a good year, trying to, to recover from that. And then when everything happened, being attacked by the press and some of the ladies that had worked with me for 10 years. And I just felt guilty to the staff, and because I put everything into my business. So I did break, and I was very broken. And I did feel that the world would be better without me in it. I couldn't leave the house for a few months. And when I started to recover, it was extreme gratitude that saved me. So what is it that, would really hurt if you lost that in your life? And for me, it was my sons. And so I thought, I can't do this. Yeah, I had feelings I knew where I wanted to end my life. I knew how I was going to do it. So those feelings were coming into me because I just felt that everybody hated me and that I had failed so much and let people down. And that's different to you having something happen to you. That's me. That's what I've created or caused. So it was totally different pain. But what I was able to do was to recognize the value of things in my life, even though I was having huge losses. So I hadn't done my due diligence. I had emails. My solicitor obviously had all of those to hand, and everything was closed, but I had to go bankrupt. I had my car. That was the first thing that I'd ever bought for myself after 13 years of putting my heart and soul into my business. I bought a new car that was towed away, and we are about to move home because we have to have an enforced sale on our home. So we now lose our house. But ironically, the car being taken away was heartbreaking compared to the home. And I laugh because I just find that insane. But you can start again. And I've moved home several times, and your heart is where your home is where your heart is. But the car I had an attachment with because I'd worked so hard, and it was the first thing I'd ever bought for myself. So it was kind of a different attachment to it. But losses hurt, business losses hurt, and people will judge, but people won't also ask you what happened. So they'll make their judgments from their own perceptions. And I had to learn that actually the press would write stuff about me that wouldn't be nice. And I had to be strong, and I had to hold myself together, and I had to make amends, and I had to try to do the best that I could to survive. And I had a choice. I could either stay where I was at real rock bottom and do something that would hurt my sons, and I wouldn't be here talking to you now. I wouldn't do anything that I do to help others. Or I could do what I've done when I was younger and got thrown out of my home, and I could just rise again. And that's what I chose to do. And it takes courage. It takes real bravery when you're in that emotional low to pick yourself back up. I don't know where that strength came from, but it was a tiny little flicker of something, and it allowed me to really start to think, actually, it doesn't matter. Think of all the years that you helped those landlords make money. Most of them have been landlords for 10 years plus, some 12 years, never had a rent void. Think of all the years that they made money. If they'd have been with other agents, or they may have made losses, but you were a good agent. All those houses were immaculate. The amount that I had done for my local communities, I'd raised £26,000 for Age UK. I did a lot of good. So all those people that you kept employed, the local economy, the events that I put on and hosted, I did lots. So to look at it like that, rather than I'd failed. The business liquidated. It hurt, but I had to learn. I had to learn lessons, and those lessons are, if you ever go into partnership with anyone, do your due diligence. It doesn't matter how much money they have, what their business credibility looks like. Look at them. Do your due diligence. Get legal terms signed. And also that you're not your business. You are not your business. So even though my business liquidated and closed, I was still me. I still had all those skills and all my strengths and all the things that I got right and all the successes and the awards. All of those things were still part of me. And rather than being ashamed of that, actually be proud of that, because those are the things that I still achieved. And so that's when I talk about that kind of reframing, Pete, I had to learn how to do that. To heal. And although I just got upset, it's because I don't think I'll ever feel that I wanted for things to end as they had. And it's probably one of the most hardest things. Like I've been cheated on, I've lived through domestic violence, I've been abused, I had to have spine surgery because I couldn't walk. I've gone through a lot in my life. I've run marathons, ultra marathons. I've done loads, but failing in business as I had was the hardest pain, without a doubt. And I wished that it hadn't happened, but I can't change it. So I have to move forward.
There seems, it resonates with you a lot more. And I think, the expression you use, it's things that have happened to you are easier than things that have happened because of you.
Yeah.
And that there seems to be a real, you're forgiving for anything that's happened to you, but it's very different when it happens because of you.
Yeah, definitely. Can I get a tissue, Pete?
Of course.
Sorry.
So when things, that the amount that you've gone through and things that have happened to you, like you say, that it comes across that losing the business, and you said yourself, had the biggest impact, and yet things that have happened to you, which emotionally would be potentially a lot sort of more significant, haven't played as big a role in your life. It comes across. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I think that's working through as well, is having to put that kind of that strength around you and that protection around you. So learning how to go through that, whereas loss of a business, and it really does, like for anybody that's lost it, it happens so quickly. You just feel like you kind of like 1 minute, a little bit tight this month. The next minute, my God, how am I going to pay my staff? Christ. Next month, you're doing stuff that you wish you didn't have to do. And then before you know it, you're like in that situation where you're closing the door, you've got liquidators, and it was horrific. But the speed in which it happened was also the way in which it happened, because you don't have, a bit like coronavirus, you don't necessarily have that control. And so you're governed by policies and creditors meetings, and it's just not pleasant. It really isn't. And then a bankruptcy, you're waiting for people to come back to you. Whereas when you're working through things and when there's an element of control on things, at least you know what's going to happen. But when things happen, like loss of business, you're not prepared. You don't realize what those next steps are going to be. And so you don't see, for instance, they closed my office. I was there with them. We said goodbye to the staff. And literally the next day, I couldn't go back into my office. And so I couldn't email and talk to my landlords. They closed all my servers. So I was like, I can't communicate. Now, if I'd have known they were going to do that, I would have prepared for that. But they were like, no, you can't say, you have to, so for instance, I couldn't ring my landlords and say, by the way, tomorrow my office is being closed. So and that really hurt for me as well, because I am a really honest person. I'm really like, as I am is what you see is what you get. And so having to kind of pretend to my staff that things were okay, I did tell them. I wasn't completely not transparent with them. I did have conversations with the people that needed to know certain things, because that's how I would operate. And I did with my landlords. I did try to kind of make sure that everything was done to the very last point. So there are certain things that you can do, but for the most part, as soon as that control's taken from you, you're like, oh my, and then you don't expect, it's a longer process than you would even imagine. So, and the emotional aspect of that as a business owner is really hard, really, really hard, because your kids have seen you as a successful businesswoman, as a going out and, doing all of those things. And then suddenly they see you and you're just broken. And that's another thing that I'm very grateful for from this, is my kids, those conversations I was saying at the beginning of this interview where we're very open, they knew. I've got messages from my sons and lovely little notes and things where some of them, I framed them. They said, Mum, you are you and we love you. And there's been some really lovely, kids are just amazing like that. They're a pain in the ass at times, but they really do. They don't see any of the other stuff. They see you for you. And that's what I love, is my kids really helped me, really. And Martin as well. Like, we met literally a month before everything happened in my business, and he's been beside me every step of the way. And that is really hard for somebody who loves you, who sees you, who respects you, admires you, then suddenly, pretty instantly, their whole world just crumbles. He's had to hold me. He's had to come to the most horrific meetings with me. He's had to see me, I can't be a company director, and I have been prosecuted. He's seen the press releases, the attacks. He's been there every step of the way. He's seen people that when things were going really well, I helped them financially and gave them my advice and spent time with them, and now suddenly they're nowhere to be seen. People that I helped completely turned their back on me, and he's seen that. So it must be really hard for the partner of somebody that goes through something like that too. So that's why I always say, like, he's my world, my kids, and my everything, because they're without them I wouldn't be here. So it's.
When did this all happen?
I closed my business in February 2019, and for about a year it was up and down, but for the last, I'd say, 3 years, it was really hard times. Hard times. But having said that, lots of people now are going through similar situations with COVID, where they're seeing, businesses that were doing really well, they're suddenly hitting cash flow crisis, having to make those decisions. See, I would have closed my business in June, July 2018, but I had somebody who I thought I could trust, a business investor, and who had a lot of, money. He was a multi-millionaire. And we had meetings. He didn't show up to a few. He did take 50% shares. I didn't get any legal advice. And this is what I say about having that legal protection. But there will be lots of business owners that see themselves going through having to make those choices. So if they are at that stage where they have to go into a partnership with somebody, or they have to, this is why I really want to make that really clear, is please just be really careful what you do. Don't take big loans out because you could personally guarantee them. Think about the risk. I always now, when I work with clients, I actually plan for a crisis. So one of the things I do is I say, look, what would happen if? Because you have to it's easier to think about things like in the calm, rather than while you're going through a shitstorm, is actually think about things now in the calm. So I always plan a crisis, because I think as a business owner, I think you have a duty to your business to make sure that you protect it. It's a huge asset. 13 years of my life went into my business, and £150,000 of my own money. I didn't take a holiday for 7 years. And a lot of business owners are exactly the same, because their business is everything to them. So it's just thinking about that. If you're having to make really tough decisions and you're staying in your business because it is everything to you, then I would suggest that you ask yourself a question. And that question would be, if I wasn't my business, would my business be a viable business proposition? Is my business viable? Because if it isn't, you need to separate yourself from that and actually make a decision based on the actuals. So the logical stuff, not the emotional stuff. And that's the thing. I think that's why I get so upset, is because I was so much on the emotional side, being ingrained in my business. So I was doing it because I wanted to succeed. I was doing it because I really believed in my business. Whereas actually looking at the logical stuff, is the person that I thought that was coming in to help me, the 50% shareholder, that then left it going from November till February, which made things even worse. But the press aren't going to report that. So, but it's all of those things that actually, that's why you just need to be really, really careful about what you do. And during a crisis, it adds levels of pressure and stresses on a business owner, on a human being, irrelevant of business, but on the human being. And that's hard. So it's, again, this is why my position now is that of such responsibility, but I get it because I've been there. and I see things from my eyes, maybe not always the right eyes, but if I can help other people to see some of the things that I learned and saw, then I think that it really will help. But also the recovery from losses, the recovery from things going not as people have. Nobody wants to leave a big trail of like, nobody wants that. So it's being able to make sure that it's, you know, planned crisis management, risk management, you know, all of those things. It's just, to me, as a business owner, when we don't have the money, that's when actually, and when I say we don't have the money, I mean, you know, if I'd have gone to a solicitor, it would have cost me £2,000-3,000. Well, I didn't have the money because I hit a cash flow crisis. But actually, if I'd have gone to a solicitor and paid 2 or 3 grand, then I'd have had all that legal protection. And so I wish that I had gone to see a solicitor, but, you know, so yeah, but what's been and done has been done.
Do you feel that the slate is clean now?
Pardon, darling?
Do you feel that the slate is clean?
If there was no landlord left with any money, then I would feel the slate was cleaned. The fact that I've endured so many losses of my own in this last couple of years, like literally everything I had saved has gone. Everything that I've worked really hard for will go and has gone. So you could say you've suffered emotionally, you've financially, you've also been prosecuted. So all of those things, would that kind of wipe the slate clean? And for me, no, not until the landlords are clear. And by that I mean financially we're at, you know, a square. And that's something that Martin and I have said. We've said this right from the beginning with everybody that we've spoken to, is that's one of the reasons why I want to work so hard, is to be in that position where one day I can say, right, here you go, I've squared you. I want to pay back everybody that I've owed money to. And it isn't, you know, £300 or £400. So it's not going to take 2 minutes, but it's how you go about that as well. Because when I was made bankrupt, and creditors have obviously, I don't know how the legalities of that works either. So I guess we would come to that when we understand the processes and what we can or can't do. But at the moment, we're not in a position to kind of go, right, we can square everything off, because we're still pretty much, you know, restarting ourselves. So and we've still got to sell the house, and, you know, all the equity that's in the house will go into the creditor pot. And so there's still things that are still transitioning and moving forward. But yeah, for me, is it square? No, not until the landlords are all repaid their money.
What's been, you know, what's your lesson so far? What have you taken from this?
Massive lessons. I said number one is, you know, when you hit a cash flow crisis, you know, it's really, really important at that point to have had and pre-made, you know, so to have a confidant you can talk to for a start. And I was on my own in business. I didn't really have anybody. To be realistic, so to think with that logic rather than emotion, and to actually maybe even plan. I never even knew that you could do that when I had my business, but to plan for crisis, that would be number one. Number two is to remember that you are not your business. You have a responsibility to trade. You have a responsibility to your landlords or to whoever your customers and suppliers are. So for me, it would be about making sure that if you knew that the business was at that point where you were finding things difficult, then you have to make those really tough decisions then, rather than trying because of the emotions. And I know that I'm not the only one in this, because I've spoken to since lots of other business owners that just push. I think, God, you know, how many of us are so ingrained in our business, so deeply passionate but obsessed almost, that they want things to be right. But actually, sometimes things aren't right. And it's about being brave enough, I suppose, and logical enough to go, no, it's not working. Right, we need to move on to a new business model. or right, we need to think about closing this business down and restarting, because then nobody gets affected by that business demise. And so it's about actually having that quality of management. And so that's where I failed, was that poor management. And the other big thing for me as well, of course, is if you go into a partnership, and I said this just before, please do due diligence. And that's where I failed, because I was in survival. I was stressed. I was single mum. I was working, like, when the kids were with their dad, I was working from like 5 o'clock in the morning till nearly midnight, every hour, trying to get things, doing everything I could to try and make money. So I was really like just tired and exhausted and really embarrassed and shamed, because like to the outside world, to some of the staff, things were like glowing, but inside I was dying. So it's, don't go into a partnership with somebody and think that everything's going to be okay, because the chances are that it might not be okay. And if you're in my situation, like I was, you're then left in an even worse situation. And the other thing is to have that legal protection behind you. So if you do go into a partnership, get those legal documents and agreements in place, even if it costs you £2,000 or £3,000, because that could be something that you can use to help protect you at a later stage if it doesn't go right. And if things don't work out, I guess for me, learning that you weren't your business, learning that you are still your skills, those are still there, those natural things that you do really well. So for me, I am a people person. I am a loyal person. I go at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So I'm a very fast worker. I'm very, very focused, disciplined. I'm still that same person. I'm still that same person. I haven't changed who I am. But also to recognize that even if the worst things happen, you lose your business, you lose your car, you lose your home, because lots of people will be in this situation right now. Don't think it's the end. It isn't the end. I'm actually relieved that I don't have those 8 or 9 staff. I'm relieved that I don't have to, count all of that sort of, because I was earning, I was a 6-figure business, so I wasn't like a huge organization, but it wasn't small either. And so I had all of those overheads and financial stresses all over me, all on my own shoulders. So coming out of that, it wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. And I never chose to be an estate agent either, Pete. But ironically, I think growing up seeing my granddad and him, he had loads and loads of properties. And one of the things that we used to do was go around and collect rents. So he'd be like, well, this is my granddaughter. And I'd be like, oh, hello, Mabel. Hello, Ethel. Like all the older ladies. And so maybe that's kind of why I kind of naturally went into estate agency. And I love helping people move forward. So seeing them move into their new home. But it wasn't what I chose. And when I was broken and I had nothing, I've lost everything, bearing in mind I'm so much shame and guilt, I hadn't healed, I was so frustrated, I wanted to find myself. I needed something, otherwise I wasn't going to be here. And so at that point, that was the point that I went into the woods with Martin, and I reconnected with myself. I found my soul, just a tiny little spark. I rediscovered who I was. And actually, it's not that bad, I am a good person. Contrary to what the press would write, I am a good person. And then I found, what it was I wanted to do, but it took time. And that was the thing with me, is I didn't have any patience because I go at such a speed. I was like, but I want it now. And Mike was like, calm down. He knew what I wanted, what I was going to do. He knew that I would be a life coach or business strategist or something along those. He knew, but I needed to know that, like after losing your business, you think, why would anybody want to work with me on their business? Like I shamed myself to that point. And so now I work with people and I do one-to-one mentorships. We have a membership site. We do courses. I've just started, in fact, talking about rediscovering reconnection. This week is my Find Your Power course, and I'm sharing the same philosophy, the same steps that I took to help them to find and rediscover themselves. And I'm working with just under 30 people. And it's just amazing. It's amazing. But I had to go through that, and I had to go through all the other stuff in my life for me to be able to go, right, now I can serve others. Now I can help others. But I wouldn't be in, I mean, don't get me wrong, I wish that nothing had ever happened to me and I woke up and I was just me. But we have to go through stuff in life to become stronger, to find out who we are. Maybe success tests us. Who knows? But I always believe that we need to see, for me, it's about leading with love. It's about being kind. It's about not judging. It's about changing that stigma attached to failure to help others. Really, really powerful about that. Sharing truths to break down barriers. Really, really passionate about that as well. But most importantly, helping those people that have kind of lost their way a little bit or don't know who they are or maybe have been broken. Because I can talk from my heart and I can help them to rediscover themselves again, and I can help them to go through that in their business, or I can help them to kind of come out and rediscover what they want in life, find their vision, to give them the map to be able to go on that journey, but to believe in themselves. And that's really, really important to me, is that everybody has that gift. It's just rediscovering, finding it, tapping into it, and then going forwards.
It's probably exactly why you are qualified to do what you're doing, is because you've been through it. And if you can save somebody else the pain through some well-heeded advice, or, you know, sort of helping, as you say, having a crisis plan, having, you know, is knowing when, you know, the party's over and the lights are coming on, you know, this is not a time to go the other direction. You know, it's tough. It is tough choices, really tough choices.
It is. I also think that when you go into that, so you don't know how long a liquidation process takes. So for instance, when I went to go and see an insolvency practitioner, which was back in November, it took from November to February to close my business. So how does a business survive with no money? The process itself is, and until you've been through that process, or before you've been attacked like really brutally by your local press, before you've had your friends, family, people that had, you know, you had held in high regard, turn their backs on you. It was the words of one guy, and I know that you know Rob Moore. I don't necessarily follow him so much now, but I remember going to one of his teachings, one of his courses, and he said, always, and he wasn't saying it to me, he was just saying it in the room, but he said, when people judge you, you have to ask yourself this. And by this point, I had this tear rolling down my eye. He said, how is it that they're judging you? Do they know the full facts? And at this point, I was like, it's true, because nobody does, because they haven't asked me. And when they're judging you, where are they forming their judgment from? Is it past? Is it stuff that's happened to them? Where's their perspective? Where's their view from? And that's the thing, isn't it? People do judge others without even, sometimes, like from a subconscious perspective, they don't really necessarily think about where that judgment comes. But when that one person is being judged, it can feel, and I think I'm quite exceptional, because I don't ever suffer from procrastination. I don't mind what other people think. So I'm not kind of like somebody that goes, oh, they're saying that. I'm not like that. I'm so laser beam focused on what I'm doing. I don't tend to get, you know, I'm not a typical woman that's kind of gossiping, sort of, getting my nails done. I'm a real focused individual. So I don't necessarily bother with the little chit chat and the, you know, I'm just like, whoa. And so when when people say things, for some people who listen to the little whisperings and the little kind of goings on, they're then distracted by that, or it hurts them, or it has a knock on their self-worth or their doubt. And it can really hurt internally. And this is something that I've never really suffered with, but I see it so many times with my clients and people that I just know in my family, where they are so consumed with what other people think of them and other people's judgments, and it hurts them inside and it holds them back. And this is why I talk a lot about that belief, because it's one of the biggest things that I learned was people will always judge you. They will always judge you. But it says more about them than it says about you. And that's what I believe anyway. So, sorry, that was a bit long-winded, but that's kind of what I was trying to say, is other people will always say what they want, but where is it that they're making their judgments from?
How do you feel about being judged?
At the time, it was horrific. I mean, as I said, I couldn't come out of the house, not even to go to Sainsbury's. I was so worried about, I don't know, somebody attacking me, or just because I had long blonde hair, and people kind of, the picture, I mean, even what they put on the press, it was all, she blames Brexit. I didn't even, I never said anything about Brexit. So they mix words, and none of it was true in what they were saying. They asked me for my own sort of story, but I wasn't going to give it to them. And I was advised not to, because they will twist it, they will turn it, they will. And actually, I had a press release the 26th of February when my business closed. Another one about a week after, when people were sort of saying about, being left without monies owed and stuff. Then I had another one the day before my 40th birthday in June. And then I had another one Christmas Eve. So bad timing. But each time it was the press mixing words, being quite vicious, like the Caroline Flack, when they post stuff about an individual, they don't care how that affects that individual. They're interested in readers, eyeballs. What's the percentage of people that are now commenting on this particular post? How many what's our rate on click-throughs, and right, what's our pixeling doing in terms of like digital analysis? What are the results? And that's what they care about, not the human heartbeat. And that's why we lose people like Caroline Flack. And that could have been me. I could have been that person that was lost because of how they made me feel. Because I cared. I didn't want things to end as it had ended. And so, yeah, people's judgment really hurt me. I wish that people would just ask me rather than what they think happens, or even the business community they've just gone. They don't post on any of it. Some of them do, but it's like 1%. And then I realised actually what the small-mindedness of that was like. They wanted to rub my shoulder when I was doing really well. But then when things happen, they weren't prepared to ask me. And as a business community, to me, surely that's what that is about, is by actually saying, are you okay? Is there anything we can do to help? Like, seriously, what? Nobody. Now, if that was somebody I knew, I would be picking up the phone. I would be emailing, are you okay? And nothing. After everything that I've put in, I've done so many local events and raised so much money and really put myself out there, and I heard nothing. It was quite... But then with things that happen in life, and not just the business failure, but I'm talking about other people that might experience losses. The judgment of family, the judgment of a local community, the judgment of maybe even a partner. It's a hard thing to kind of work through. But as I said, you have to just be really truthful. Like for me, sharing my truths all the time, sharing it on Facebook, has allowed me to be really transparent with people, even the really shit things like the prosecution, even the really shit things like and the first video I did was when, I can remember it now, it was like Mental Health Awareness Day, and it was the first time I'd done a live, and it was about me feeling like it was time to just say goodbye, and that was my first live. And by sharing those truths, what it's done is you can go back through, you can see everything is evidenced, how hurt, how much pain, how much I've recovered, how much how sorry I was, how the losses that I've endured, the losses that are happening, it's all documented, it's all out there, it's all public, in that public digital arena. So by sharing truths, it's, for me, I think for anybody that goes through those losses, in some ways, sharing our vulnerabilities actually puts us in a stronger position. So it's important to do that, but I get that not everybody wants to do that because everybody's different. So yeah.
It's a cathartic process too.
Yeah.
You have to go through, because self-forgiveness is the hardest forgiveness in so many ways. What keeps flashing back to me is that image of the warrior girl, sort of rolling around in the in Cornwall is but that, I only say that as almost like the spirit that just keeps going, and the spirit that you have to lean on, as you say, because I'm curious as well. You talked about that spark that you saw in the forest. If you could talk to us a little bit about that.
I don't really know how to explain it, but I think, so my nan used to be a gypsy Romany, and she would read people's fortunes by playing cards and tea bags and things like this. And so I grew up around quite a sort of, I don't even know the word. Pete, you're going to have to help me out here. What's the word when people talk to spirits?
It could be a medium, could be a psychic.
Medium. No, yeah. It is medium. Psychic medium. Okay, so you can delete that bit. So sorry. So that's what my nan was. And my nan used to have, so she would do a lot around talking with spirits. And when I said to you before about seeing previously two spirits, one was, I went to value a house in Lou, and I was in the garden of this it was like a bungalow, but it was in a really kind of forest, it was just beautiful, like a little stream. I was with this lady and I heard this sound. That corner. And I sort of turned around and she said, "Are you seeing something?" And I sort of went, "Oh no." But I thought, my God, that felt really. And she said, "But you must tell me if you do." And it was almost a look of desperation in this lovely lady's face. And I didn't want to look like some weirdo kind of coming in, and because my mum used to be very like, yeah, anybody that believes in all that stuff, they're all fluffy kind of, she's quite a firm. So I thought, I don't want to seem like somebody that's a bit fluffy. So I was just kind of like, "Oh no, nothing." And she said, "Please tell me, my son has passed." And I just thought, oh my God. And I could immediately see, I didn't see him, but I could see in my head this little boy, brown hair, quite petite, little, and I remember it quite vividly because he had red trousers on, like cargo trousers. And I said, I've just seen a little boy. She said, oh, what was he playing? I went, I think it was the trumpet. She went, oh my God, that's my son. And I said, oh, and I came away, and, you know, and it's really weird because 2 weeks after that, she came into the office and she brought me this spell book that she'd had in her attic, which I've still got here. It's like 90 years old now, but it's just beautiful. It's of these like old ancient kind of spells. And she said, you are the only person that's come over. And she said, we've sold now, we've moved, but it was almost like you were saying that it was okay to do what we were doing and that he will always be free. And I was like, oh my God. And I didn't recognize anything. Like, I didn't think that was, I don't know, I just moved on from that. And I lived in a house when I was a single mum after my second relationship. And Casey he would have been 2 or 3. And he, as I said, he's now 15. But every night when we moved into this house, he would wake up at 3 a.m. and scream. And I would go up the stairs and I would smell a smell. And it was quite sickly. And one night I walked into his room and I saw this lady on a sewing machine, with bobbings, and just, and I realised that's why he was waking up, because this lady that I saw with these little curlers in her hair, white curlers. And it's really weird because I asked the neighbour, I said to him, who used to live here? He said, oh, it was da-da-da. I don't remember the name, but he said it was an old lady. I said, did she used to have white hair? Well, obviously with old people, but, you know, I said, I'm sure I've seen, and I saw her again walking up the stairs. And it was really, really weird. Really, well, not weird, but just, well, I know what I saw, but it was just, and I've not done anything with that, but I have seen a couple of mediums who have said, you should be on the other side. You shouldn't be coming here to see me. I should be coming here to see you. And I've gone, no, because when I go back to that candle incident, it's really weird that you're asking me this, actually, because why pick up on all this over everything else, Pete? It's really weird. But that candle incident I was doing was about energy work and protecting myself with a gold kind of bubble. And as I did it, something came in the back and really hurt the back of my neck, like really made me feel like somebody had just literally gone boom on the back of my head. And for about 2 or 3 days after that, I had the most horrific kind of like here, like on my throat. And I had a really like I was talking like I was an old person, like, but I went to see somebody after that, and she said, and she helped kind of put my ground, she grounded me and protected me and said, you're free now to move on. She said, but they want you. And I was like, really? Well, I don't know. But basically, you are the only person that could decide when you want to, you know, go down that path of spiritual stuff. And I don't know a lot about it, so I don't know what's right and what's wrong. I only know what I know. I know what I've seen. I know what I feel. I don't know, but I know that I've not been ready to go down that path because I've always had like children, young kids, life, obviously all the things that I've come through, and then business and everything else. So, but what I do know is I always go back to the place of woodlands. It's where I feel connected. It's where I feel free. It's where I feel the most me. And that is my, like, that's me. And so that's why I say, you know, when I do a lot of my work and I create my courses, I will record from woodlands, or I will go and be creative in woodlands. And that's where all that kind of free energy comes from. And I love that. And that's why I love what I do now, because I'm not confined to 4 walls in an estate agent's prestigious office with my suit and, you know, my little heels. And all the people that have those expectations, and yes, it's glamorous and awards and, you know, popping open champagne and winning things, but it's not about being grounded and actually helping others. It's not my only purpose in life. Like, I'm happy myself. It's not why I need to be happy, but I know the power of doing what I've done. So therefore, helping other people to have that is a gift that I have. And if I'm honest, I probably always have had, because working with people, it's about serving others, and that's what I've always done. But from a place of here, like, you know, it's always been about that leading with love from here. And I don't know what that means, but that's where it comes from. Yeah. And now I feel like a twat talking about spiritual stuff, which I have no idea about, but I know. Yeah,
I've had psychic mediums on the show. I think it's fascinating. It's truly fascinating. I mean, whatever your
maybe
view
I
is,
should talk. Yeah. Why did you ask then?
It's only, I'm just, again, it's in your body language, and I think it's I don't know. I like I said at the start before we start recording, is I start with a blank sheet of paper and I just ask what I think, you know. And the one thing I want to ask is, are you where you're supposed to be? You know.
You might want to just edit that, Pete.
Sure.
I think when the phone rings, it comes through on my laptop, so I can only apologise, even though it was on silent. Okay, so just repeat that to me. I apologise. I
was just going to ask if, with everything that's going on, do you believe you are where you're supposed to be?
I believe I'm more where I'm supposed to be now than I've ever been anywhere else before in my life. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Like, I've never ever felt so happy about the things that I'm filling my day with, the results that I achieve, the love I have in my heart, the connection that I have now with my boys. I don't longer feel like mummy guilt and all of the things that I did when I was kind of, you know, I don't have the stress. I don't have any of those things. I'm building and creating a future which hopefully will not just be about paying and settling my way, but will also be about living a fluid lifestyle with Martin. And we want to kind of do crazy things like have a couple of bikes, and we want to have a motorhome and take our business around the world, because we want to be a global empire. And it's like, for me, it's just created, like, I don't have the same fears, and I don't have the same, because I've gone through so much. I know I can survive. And I don't know, it's like, come back, but come back real badass. Like, literally just do it for you, do what makes you happy. Don't let anybody, you know, judge you. Don't let anybody, also with what happened with the business, it wasn't all my fault. And so it's now about, you know, creating a life where I am in that control, but also equally I'm enjoying it. And so, you know, I'm not going to live the next 40 years of my life, Pete, and not be happy. This next 40 years of my life is doing the things that really make me happy and excite me and get me jumping out of bed and doing the stuff that I actually want to do with my time. And so, yeah, it's for me, I'm the happiest that I've ever been, ever. So it's good.
Well, it's amazing to see. And what's your passion now? I mean, what is your fire in the belly now?
My fire in the belly is simple for me. It's about waking up in the morning and having gratitude. And really, I've got a massive dream. I feel really uncomfortable talking about it because it's so big, but I believe I'll achieve it. And seeing myself, and then COVID came along, but on a stage with thousands of people really making a difference, that real sense of people coming away, learning, taking away some real emotion, the energy shift in the room. Just love that. Absolutely love that. but also the smaller term goals as well, which I just love, like the daily stuff that some people would be like really bored pantless from. But I'm just so grateful to have the choice of, you know, just doing what I enjoy. And that to me is so, so important. So I'm living with purpose, but also intent. So I'm very present in what I do. And it's, when I look at this next 10 years and what we've achieved so far in 10 months, it's, to be honest, it's quite phenomenal. It really is. So I'm excited about the next 10 months, 10 years. I've learned so many lessons, some painful, some just wise, I guess. But the reason I stand for resilience and growth is because it's having that, and you said studulous, what's that word? But it's having that hard work approach, not giving up. But resilience is about inner strength for me. And everybody has it. Everybody has it. And it's helping people to tap into that inner strength. But also the growth in their life, foremost, because if you're not right, if I'm not right, if we're not right as human beings, then we're not the best dad, we're not the best mum, we're not the best friend, we're not the best sister or brother, we're not the best business owner, we're not the best. So all of these things are like, everybody wants like a big house, big sheeple stuff, right? But really deep down, it's about the person, and that person has to be right in themselves. And this is why when I wake up in the morning, I visualize where I am, I visualize where I'm going, and I visualize how I'm going to achieve that and the people that I can help along that process. And that makes me really happy. Like, no money, I've not bought anything for myself for months and months. But I'm more happy now. I don't need shoes. I don't need bloody handbags. I don't need cars. I don't need none of that. You know, I might need face cream and, you know, but it's not what makes me happy. What makes me happy is being with people that are similar-minded, driven, focused, you know, wanting to achieve things in life and actually helping them to achieve that. That's what makes me happy. And like you on our podcast show, you know, for me, the reason we set up that podcast show was Martin really wanted a podcast show. So I said, look, let's do it. Because he wouldn't do it on his own. Because he's kind of like, he's kind of one of these that has an idea but doesn't quite have the to do it. So he really wanted to do this. He'd looked at this before I'd met him. So when I met him, I was like, well, look, come on, because I wanted to give him, after everything that he stood by my side for, I wanted him to have something that was kind of his, and to make, I don't know, to give him something that he wouldn't have maybe done on his own. So doing that with him was just amazing, and it's just lovely. But the most important part of that is talking to people on an equal playing field, no matter who they are, where they've come from, talking about their experiences, talking about their highs and lows, most importantly, talking about those truths. And so, you know, again, that's a really powerful thing to have, you know, to be able to give people that space. So that makes me really happy. To be honest, I just love everything I'm doing, and I'm going to talk on and on and on, and you'll be like, Kelly, be quiet. But I do, I love it. I love the community. I love the membership zone, being able to give people affordable training and development. You know, I know what it's like to not have any money. So there needs to be that for people that are starting over again. Because there are a lot of coaches and mentors that will charge £6,000-9,000, and people don't necessarily have that. But I also know the importance of value and investing in personal development or business, you know, somebody that can actually excel that. And so we also offer the other products, but also I invest in myself, because that's so, so important. And then the other things that we do, which I love, which are like the podcast and just yeah, we're thinking of doing well, there's something coming up which is really exciting as well. I'm the one that gets all the ideas and go, right, let's do it, and Paul Martin's kind of behind me going, fucking hell, love, you've got another bloody really good idea, but I see it through, and that's the difference between a lot of people that have ideas but not do it.
That's a partnership too, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't do it without him at all. I need him to be there to support, but also to, like, I'll come up with certain things and he'll go, babe, have you thought about this? And I think, oh, no, I didn't think about doing it that way. So we work really, really well together. And that's the other thing that's ironic, is I met Martin, and then this all kind of, it's like, fucking hell, nobody else would have gone through that experience with me and supported me and been by my side and held me. But then nobody else would have been in this arena, you know, personal development, business, all of those things. It's like, it's just meant to be. And Martin always says to me, the right people turn up at the exact right time. And I believe him. I absolutely believe him. He turned up at the right time for me. So I'm grateful for that too. But yeah, life, it tests you. It really does test you sometimes, and so does business, so does success, and so does everything else. So that's, you know, that's just life, isn't it?
You talked a bit about visualization. You talked about chakras earlier. Can you explain what that means to you?
So visualization, I do this every single day, and I have done since I heard Robin Sharma talking about it. So in the mornings, I wake up nice and early. I do a lot of breathing, stretching out, because when you're on a computer, a lot of the time you get quite tight. So I like to kind of stretch out, and I'm just really grateful for, you know, for everything in my life. So as I said to you before, it's about Martin, my family and things, but it's also about life itself. And I think a lot about my future and where life is going forward. But I do visualize myself in 10 years. So I do kind of take myself out of where I am right now and just really fully present in that moment of what I want to achieve, and seeing myself there, feeling senses that I would feel if I was in that moment. I also do hypnosis, guided hypnosis. So I do quite a lot of those sessions as well, which is kind of deep work. And I've not done chakra work apart from that was going back, as I said, about sort of 15 years ago or so. I haven't done that since. But I do every day when I go to sleep at night. I think, how could I have achieved more in my day? How and what have I learned through my day? And am I proud of what I've achieved today? And if I died, am I happy that I've done everything that I wanted to do? Have I fulfilled everything I wanted to do? So I like to close off on a real kind of thoughtful process. I suppose, again, being very present in that moment. I do believe that by being more self-aware now, more than I've ever been, tapping into that intuition, tapping into, like, not a false kind of me, but just me. I don't always have the best words to describe, sorry, Pete, but yeah, it's just seeing me as a person, nothing else, just in that moment. It's really beautiful, actually. I love that. Like, when it's just you and your thoughts, it's a really lovely place to be.
Yeah, I think, you know, listening to yourself is key. You know, and I don't know whether it's similar. Well, I'm 40, and I know, as I explained on the podcast, you know, I think I don't know whether it's an age thing or whether it's you're far enough away from your birth, or you're at the stage in your life where you realize you've got to stand on your own feet, or what. I don't know what it is for me. It's just at a stage where you start questioning everything, but you're kind of going, no, this is not a rehearsal, and I kind of want to get this right now. You know, so it's No, I must say it's a hell of a story. You know, it's a hell of a journey you've been on. You know, and it's quite something. You know,
Mm.
overall, I mean, how do you feel about your life in general?
It's just where I am, isn't it? I wish, again, I think I said this earlier, it's like, I wish none of that, any of the bad stuff had ever happened to me, or what happened with me, like if you could just wake up now and just be me, I would actually be really quite happy. But you can't change some of the things that happen to you through no fault of your own.
Hmm.
You can only learn that actually that gives you the power of being able to resonate with certain people, which is a gift. Like when you've survived abuse, when you've been a domestic violence, victim, and you come through from that, the empathy that you can share with other people is like, unless you've been through it, you really don't know. So I'm, I forgive, and I'm grateful that I've been able to come through those experiences to then help other people, like properly help other people. The loss of my nan and my granddad were like, nobody wants to lose people that they absolutely love, and we all want to share those moments with people for as long as we can, but unfortunately we never know when that time is.
Hmm.
There's babies that are born that pass over. There's no, we all have an equal amount of time in a day, but we just don't know how long our days are going to be. So from that perspective, it taught me about the importance of spending quality time with the people that you love, and also what really is important, which is to have those really valuable experiences, not all the kind of flashy stuff. It is about those experiences with people and really loving people. That's what life is about. And I think we forget that. And so that's what that taught me. But also the pain of loss and of losing somebody, for nights, for days, tears, for going back into a house when that loved one has died and still remembering holding their hands, or all of those things. It's you can't talk about that unless you've been there. So as much as those moments hurt me, and I, to be there and hold somebody's hand when they die is just, but also the experience that gives you, it's a different level, isn't it? It's different. And so again, I'm grateful for that, because I can share those experiences. We talk about when I just slipped 2 discs in my back, and next thing you know, I can't walk. I've had my son's 3 months old. I can't even get up from my bed to change his nappy. I'm a cripple. I can't move. I'm in so much pain. I have to take so many painkillers every day. I have spinal surgery that could kill me, and the recovery of that. But then to go from that to then running ultra marathons, just, you couldn't fucking make it up, could you? And then if that wasn't enough, I then had a husband and an adultery. So I've had that too. I can talk to people about having that done to them. And then really, just to really put the icing on the cake, I can then talk about business losses and, when a business demise, through all of that, how it affects relationships, customers, credibility, resources, personal, in terms of personal losses from business owner, and how to go through that and how to recover, and the emotional stuff, and believe you me, it's a real gut wrench. So personal life and loss is horrible. Business loss is even more horrible. It was for me. And so through all of those things, it's just, and I had a son as well that was ADHD, and because I was a single mum at the time, they didn't have the support, and I was, even though I didn't even drink wine, they were like, well, do you drink, and I was like, what? So they kind of attacked me from social services, and I'm like, I'm just a single mum, but they didn't have the same, so that's another thing as well, is I had a son, and it was really hard bringing up a son who was ADHD on my own. He was biting some of the other, it was just horrific. So I've had all sorts of things happen to me through my life, not just one thing. So I think I kind of earned my crowning, if you like, of resilience and growth leader. And I don't mean that because I couldn't give a shit about an ego. And it's not, when I say leader, it's not, ooh, look at me. It's because I'm leading the way to help others, because I'm breaking down those barriers to help inspire others. Nobody should have to be on their own. Nobody should have to feel that level of guilt and shame. And that's why I do what I do, is to really make a difference, because we don't know how long we've got in life. And by God, I want the people that I work with to enjoy their lives and to get the most from it. And whether that's on a personal level or on a business level, both are equally as important to me. But it always starts with like ourselves. So, yeah.
Do you like yourself, and do you love yourself?
Yes, I do. I love, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because a lot of people don't look in that mirror. Now, I accept that I'm probably a stone and a half heavier than I'd like to be. It's part of the genetics, I think, to be heavy boobs, and kind of, we've got small bums, big boobs. That's kind of the family line. That's what my nan always says this. Like,
you too. Oh.
But we're all, yeah. I mean, that's one thing that I've always, I quite happily right now just go, here I am. This is me. That's how confident I am in my own space. I don't need makeup to feel good. I am who I am. So I am actually.
That's beautiful.
What can I say? I know I'm not the most attractive. I know that I've got my own shapes, but I accept, and I know I'm slightly overweight, but I accept that. But I still think I'm beautiful. And yes, I love myself, and I believe in myself too. Absolutely believe in myself.
Wow. It's awesome. Tell us, what are your core values?
My core values: kindness, love, integrity, entrepreneurial, resilience or resilient, sedulous, and driven.
Wow. It's a lot. I like it.
Yeah.
Do people get you?
Don't really think about what. I don't know. Do you get me?
Doesn't matter, does it?
I don't think it really matters. Maybe that's why I don't really, because that's what I was saying about the judgment thing. I think people get me, but I don't think it really matters.
Some people don't feel understood, and some people do, and I just think it's an intriguing view.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they do, because I did some market research when I was looking to sort of, to go in an industry where there's lots and lots of different kind of coaches, mentors, and all. I wanted to find my own micro niche. So not just a niche, but even deeper. I said, what words would describe? I actually, oh my God, Pete, it was, did actually give me a little kind of emotional moment, because what people saw was strength, resilience, but kindness, love, and it was actually quite touching, like to see what other people thought of me. So actually they were pretty bang on. But I only asked sort of 10, 11 sort of people. So I didn't go out and ask like 1,000. I don't know. Yeah.
No, it's good. So tell me, fire in the belly, if we could summarize it in one or two words, what would that be for you?
Unjudged, honest, support, guidance to become that higher version of oneself, to be that warrior to find that inner resilience when it's needed most, and to just be true to yourself and others. That is, to me, my version, or the version of fire in your belly. To stand up and be strong. Wow. Yeah. I couldn't make it one or two words. Sorry, Pete.
I was going to say, you can't count.
I tried.
You clearly can't count, but that's okay. We'll give you a Bible.
I had to remove the love and integrity part, but and the belief and the the superpowers. Yeah. No, it's about being true and honest to yourself and others, and really standing for change, and for that real and like you said, for people to really believe and love themselves. I think that is so important, Pete, actually. I think that's really important.
So tell me, how can people reach out to you? How can people get a hold of you and follow you?
My business is with my partner Martin, and we've got Over the Edge. So this is where we encourage people to step beyond their comfort zone, so out of their comfort. And it's not a scary process. It's just, instead of just doing ordinary and accepting ordinary, it's actually just stepping beyond that kind of comfort and reaching that extraordinary version of themselves. And that everybody's so different. So they can come and find us at Over the Edge. They can also, we've got an online community, which is Over the Edge community. So they can come and find us on there. I have my own Facebook page. And so does Martin Miller. So you're welcome to speak to either of us at any time. That's the other thing. We always, because of what you go through, you want to make sure that you're there, when people need you most. And nobody oversteps the mark. We don't get people, taking advantage of that, actually. It's quite honouring that people do ask when they need us, but we don't get people taking the
Mm-hmm.
So but we like to say that we're there at any time if anybody needs us.
Kelly, it's been an absolute honour to have you on. It's been emotional. It's been funny.
Thank you.
It's been real.
Sorry.
No.
Ha
No, it's great, and I appreciate you sharing your stories and sharing your vulnerability with us. That says the true test of a character, really, to be able to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Pete. It's been an experience. I've had some tears. I've had some highs. I have shared my vulnerabilities, and I've been very true. So I hope when I do something like this that it helps one person. And if that's the case, then I've done a good job. So and thank you so much for having me as well. I really appreciate it.
Done a great job. Kelly, thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, darling.